So I'm making this follow-up video because of a comment, which I know, don't respond to comments on the internet, but this one was a good comment. This was a great one. It actually highlighted an issue that we completely overlooked in our discussion. Probably one of the most important things to discuss with people that aren't really familiar with manufacturing, and that's just-in-time manufacturing. This has actually been something that's been going on for the last couple of decades, where instead of having an inventory, a built-up inventory, everything has been planned out to make things just in time. It's exactly as it sounds. It makes sense, financial sense from a bean counter perspective, but it doesn't take into account things like what's happened recently and supply chain interruptions and things of that nature. But it also doesn't take into account stuff like downtime and failures in machinery, breakdowns, things of that nature. So, Rob from Facebook in the maintenance group, you are absolutely correct. I got to give you credit for it. You pointed it out, and I was like, yeah, we kind of overlooked something important. Should have spoken about it, should have talked about it, gone over it a little bit more. And I do believe you'll probably hear that subject come up in some of our other discussions because it does so heavily impact so many different things. And my view on just-in-time manufacturing is it makes sense in certain applications, in certain industries, in certain industry sectors. It doesn't make sense everywhere, though. I mean, just take an example of, like, say, a small mom and pop burger joint. Well, you go in there and you order a burger and fries, right? You're like, I just want to order a burger and fries. So you go in there, you order a burger and fries, and they make them right then and there. Well, that's okay. But what if their supplier treated it the exact same way? You went in there and you said, I like a burger and fries. And they say, okay, it'll be here tomorrow. That's not going to work out so good because the supplier is like, well, you just need it right now. So I know that's a little bit convoluted, kind of confuses a little bit. And most manufacturers, do have their raw materials ready to go as they run and they try to plan it out that way. But there is a lot of old warehouses that just pretty much go without use nowadays because the much older, when I say older, I'm talking about over 20 years ago, older type of way of thinking is that you had an inventory there as a buffer in case something happened. Because of changes in tax structure and the way things have worked over the years, there's been a large decline in that. So there's many different factors that have played out as to why a lot of manufacturers choose to go that route now. Most of them have to do with really just the profitability of it. If you think about it, if I make something and I stop getting orders for it, I just have to eat the cost of making that thing. Well, there's that, but there's also that you don't have anything to lean back on when something bad happens. Taxes, when I mentioned tax structure, is that people get taxed on their inventories. So I have to pay to the city here for the value of everything that I have here on my property, on my business property. So the computers, the desks, everything comes into play. A lot of people don't know this unless they run a business or a small business. And it can be quite substantial. Now, a smaller business like mine, it's not as impactful. It's still something. It's not as impactful as, say, a very large manufacturer where they say, okay, how much, worth of stuff do you have sitting around in inventory and whatnot? And you may or may not, depending, end up paying taxes on that. I understand the government's point of view a little bit as to how some companies could avoid taxes by producing a lot of it, not paying taxes on it, and just kind of sitting on it and then selling it when the price goes up next year, or maybe selling more of it in a producing less and selling more in a environment where the taxes, because our politics shift from every 2 years, every 4 years, every 8 years, whatever, that they may decide to sell those things and not have as many inputs coming in to cost them as much, but sell all this extra inventory to save on taxes a little bit. So they could manipulate that system a little bit when the taxes go down. So, you vote this guy in, taxes go down, therefore they sell more or whatever during that. So yeah, there's a lot of ways to take a look at that. The way that I see it is that you should have a safety net in any business, that you do. Nobody could have predicted the pandemic. Nobody could have predicted the delay of shutdown. Not to get political, but everybody heard 2 weeks to slow the spread, and 2 weeks turned into like 2 years. So yeah, there's a problem there. Not in every state, not in every location, of course. But you got to take a look at the situation and say, okay, well, it's not like everybody couldn't have planned that out. Like everyone wouldn't have projected for that. But you do project, and you should plan for breakdowns. I mean, I come up in the maintenance side of things, and we have to take a look at it as, okay, we've got these breakdowns. They're going to happen. We don't know when they're going to happen, but they are going to happen. It could be a major failure. It could be a small failure. And we should have some cushion to fall back on so that we don't interrupt our supply chain, because our customers are relying on us for our goods and services. So when you take a look at that stuff, you realize that there's wisdom in having a savings account, right? Would you recommend to your family and friends, don't have anything extra in the bank account? Would you, for a rainy day, for a breakdown on a car or anything like that? Well, that's kind of what a lot of these businesses are doing, because they're, and even worse, because they could be sitting on a ton of cash, but that cash isn't going to do anything for them if you don't have the capability to produce. And that's the situation we're in right now, of course. So this is a follow-up to the discussion that we had. And and the reason I'm creating this clip is because it was a big overlook on our part to leave that out. The lean manufacturing, just-in-time way of producing things. A lot of us guys have been mocking it for quite a while now, and really pointing to how dangerous it is. And it really has. I think all of us in the industry have probably seen instances where this has really cost the business and it's really hurt the business. So you have to take a look at that and say, okay, yeah, and I told you so is maybe a little bit, in order there. Now, of course, I can't say that it is the 100% sole contributor to all this. Of course not. But you can't, if you plan out and you don't have more capacity than what your normal demand is, then you're gonna struggle to pick up if you ever have to make up slack too. But if you see demand growing, and your inventory, because you have this cushion, this inventory starts to decrease, because you say you're putting in 100 widgets in here, and demand was 90 widgets out normally, and so you're like, okay, well, we've got the capacity to make 100, we're selling 90, so we're just, we're going to build up a little bit of inventory in between as a buffer. In that case, we have a breakdown or an interruption or anything like that, or demand increases, right? You as demand starts to increase, and usually demand doesn't, it does sometimes, but demand for products usually doesn't just spike. Like what happens typically is you'll start to see an increase, and you'll start to see an uptick of that. And as they see that happening, they can't keep their inventory high enough, as it's eating into their inventory and their cushion. Then they start to say, hey guys, we're selling more. Maybe this is temporary. Maybe we take a look at it and say, maybe we need to bring on more machines. Maybe we need to build more machines. Maybe we need to increase our capacity and invest in that. And that's a business decision, right? That's not for the maintenance guy to decide. That's not for the guy that's even designing the machines to decide, or upgrading them or fixing them. That really is a business decision for the business owner or shareholders and everybody that has a voice in that. But as a person that's just using a little bit of common sense and has seen how these things have played out, and over time as these things have played out, I will say I think that not having that buffer is very unwise. I do believe that having a buffer, just like having a savings account or anything like that in case of a rainy day, I think can help smooth things out. And I think that, and I'm speaking to all manufacturers, but in specifically American manufacturers, is that this just-in-time manufacturing is probably not a good idea on most goods. Okay, on most goods. Now, I do believe there probably are some cases that can be made in certain scenarios where it's like, look, this end product is a very high end. We only sell a few. Like in my field, for example, if somebody said, "Hey George, I need you to build this particular automated system," and it's a one off. We do custom work, so it's normal for us to say, "Okay, well, that's one time. All we're going to do is ever produce one, or maybe two, or three, or whatever." For us, we couldn't absorb the cost. But I do keep inventory here. I do my best to actually keep a lot of stuff that I may never sell. And the sole purpose of that is to just help keep people running. That's it. So I keep extra photo eyes, relays, contactors. I got several of the base contactors, and then I got for those of you that know what these things are, a bunch of overloads for different size motors and things. We've got various different drives, used and new, and different ways of cabling. You just name it. It's a lot of stuff in what you would use in automation, and I keep those things on the shelf. Though I have to pay taxes on them, I am probably not. I know I'm not going to sell all of it ever. It's just using my experience, taking a look at what the industry needs, and saying I'm going to get a call from somebody. It just happened to me actually a couple of days ago. I got a call and somebody said, "Hey, and this is a big company, and they better not shut down because a lot of people would be angry about getting a particular tasty treat that they love, and they needed something right away." Well, because I have this attitude towards these things, I don't throw away much. I only have so much room. And I do have to make a decision from time to time to get rid of things, but I had the part because I have that attitude towards it. It's like, hey, I've got that old maintenance man attitude of, don't throw anything away. Well, 90%. And I held on to the previous drive and was able to get them running in the same day. Well, right now that's very difficult to do. It's very difficult to get parts. Everybody, I think, is probably pretty aware of that at this point, especially on our side of things. And I think it's very important to approach these things with that in mind. Let's take a look at it. Let's say, hey, enough is enough. The lean manufacturing thing, there's some things we can adopt from it. There's some things that we need to just throw out from it. I've seen companies clear out their tool cribs and just literally send them to the scrapyard. I've seen millions of dollars worth of stuff sent to the scrapyard, and it blows my mind when I see that kind of thing. There's plenty of other companies on the aftermarket that would snatch that stuff up. You're not going to get new prices for it because they're taking a risk, but you could still put it out there on the market for somebody to be able to get a hold of and use. So with that being said, again, got to give credit where credit's due. One of the guys on Facebook, made a comment, and I was like, yeah, I kind of messed up there. And me and Jeremiah actually had discussed these lean manufacturing products. Me and several of the guys, we've actually talked about it. Mocked it, and just like, man, why do they do this? It doesn't make any sense. They don't have any cushion at all, and this has gone on, and I think plenty of the guys in the field probably have too. And I absolutely glossed over it. Didn't really highlight it, and it probably is one of the core functional technical reasons why we are unable to just pick back up and take back off again. Now, the degree of the interruption also causes the degree of pain that we're now seeing. So I don't want to keep this too long. I just want to be kind of a little bit of response, but shout out to you, bud. I don't have permission to mention your name here, but I'd mention your name if I did. And thank you very much for bringing that up. I just wanted to respond to that. Y'all have a great day.